Jenny McCarthy Show.
Oh! Hey, Pete.
Hi.
Pete Holmes, comedy sex god. So you say. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Are we on?
We are. I like it real. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that fake shit in between. I've got some fans in the studio here today, so you might have to just live up to their expectations.
Oh, God.
Comedy sex god.
Thank you for pausing. You need to pause. Otherwise, it does sound like I'm saying most of the sex in the book is with myself. It is. It's true. You'll read 10 pages and you'll be like, oh, he didn't mean it that way.
Well, I got to tell you, I can appreciate this. I wrote a book called Bad Habits, Confessions of a Recovering Catholic.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
Yes. And it was
Wait, I get it.
cathartic, you know.
Bad habits.
Yeah, you know, and I'm wearing a habit and everything.
I just did a photo shoot for Playboy in a habit.
Come
hey,
on.
there we go.
Is Playboy still around?
It was a website.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a website with modest nudity. They don't show Bush anymore, so I kept trying.
That's true. That means we're old.
No more Bush.
Let's sell the book. We got a big book buying audience.
Oh, yeah?
Yep,
Well, tell me about yours. I'm very curious. So you grew up Catholic?
I did. I grew up all-girl Catholic school, 12 years. And then I posed for Playboy, so you can see how well that worked out for me.
Well, I mean, that seems to me like a natural sort
It
of
is.
breaking away. You need to find yourself.
And I was $20,000 in debt, but that's another story.
Is that true?
Yeah.
And that's in the book?
Yeah.
Here, we're selling your book. I don't mind.
I don't wanna
If
sell
you
my
buy
book.
one book, buy Bad Habits.
I'm
if you buy
done.
2 books, buy Bad Habits.
I want
and
people
Comedy
to, you
Sex
know what,
Guide.
I pride myself on this show as being a great book-selling show. 'Cause
I love that.
I love books, and
Yeah.
I have so many
Well, there's
authors.
something intimate about it. That's people ask me all the time. You know, I'm a comedian. I have a podcast. I have all these ways to sort of communicate with people. So why write a book? But specifically, when you're writing about spirituality, there's something about like being that thing in your backpack, nestled up on your couch, or like
right.
on a plane. Because I always want to talk about. I love talking about lapsing. I love deconstruction.
Yes.
But I also love reconstruction. I love finding out which babies we want to save from the spiritual bath, if any.
I get it.
Because that to me is where I just did Good Morning America, and believe it or not, I was trying to make this point where I was like, chasing happiness is a really stupid. It's bullshit. I couldn't say that on that show. I can say that on this show.
Yes, you can.
It's bullshit. Like the way that our brains are designed is like I was eating ice cream on the beach. I was just on vacation, and it was awesome. I was eating ice cream, but I realized in that moment. One of the points in my book, I was like, you eat ice cream and you're like, I've done it. And you're happy for like a minute.
That's right.
And then the ice cream's gone. And this is straight Ram Dass. He taught this to me. He's like, then you want water. Then you're tired and you want coffee. Then the coffee wears off and you have a headache, you want Advil. Or then you want a nap. And then you need dinner. Then you're bored and you watch a movie. Then the movie's done and you're like, well, what now? Like we're always chasing
Totally.
the next thing. So for me, getting identified with your spirit or consciousness, if
Yep.
we want to use just the scientific
Sure.
word, or soul, if you want to use the Christian word, getting into that place of quiet witness is where real peace is. And it's
100%.
it sounds very woo-woo, but it's very practical.
It is.
For me, like peace, this is another Ram Dass thing. The book has a lot to do with my one of my great teachers named Ram Dass, but it's like peace doesn't exist in the ego. You can't have it.
Correct.
So in church, we used to say, peace be with you. And we're talking to each other as personalities, like, peace be with you.
Right.
Hope you feel some peace in
That's
the
right.
car. What, for 5 seconds? As long as you're identified with your story, with the story of Pete, does he have his coffee? Did he have his breakfast? How did Jenny McCarthy do? Did I do well? Did the
Right.
book sell? It's fucking nonsense.
Correct.
It's nonsense. You need to practice. This is why we meditate. This is why we study. This is why we contemplate.
That's
This
where
is why
that
we sing.
word mindfulness came into
That's
place.
right. And also just like getting out of mindfulness is a bad word for mindfulness, I think, because it sounds like you're full of your mind, right? You're like using your mind.
Right.
I'm trying to help people do what I did, which is learn to kind of circumvent your mind. Your mind is a liar. Your mind is a thief. When I was
Teach
growing
my
up
son that, yeah.
in the church, we thought that the devil was the liar
Correct.
and the thief, right? To me,
It's
that's a
ego.
good metaphor for your ego.
Correct.
Jenny McCarthy, way ahead.
Way,
I'm going to read Bad
way.
Habits, no lie. That sounds fascinating.
No, come on.
And you
Selling
get this
comedy sex
stuff.
ed. Not only I get it, we talk about it every single day.
Fucking A.
Getting present. I mean, that
Yes,
really is
but
where peace
why
is.
be present? That's right. You just said it.
Yes.
People say be here now, and that's one of my favorite books. But why? Because this is where the juice is.
It
This is where the
is.
joy is. I don't give a fuck what symbol system you believe in.
No.
If it's this God or this tradition or this tradition, I don't care. I don't want to turn you into me. I don't want people to read my book and think what I think and become what I am. That's fucking nonsense too. I just want you to get a little bit of
Inspire.
peace.
Right.
And it's in you. And that's what all the great mystical traditions are pointing to, is you aren't who you think you are.
Totally.
The thing that grew around you, your body, your Jenny McCarthy-ness, your womanness, whatever, is all false self.
Right.
And this is psychology and it's spirituality.
That's right.
It's false self. And I'm trying to help people and invite people, as a comedian, trying to say, like, get in touch with the real self, not to please your parents.
That's right.
Not to go to heaven when you die. Let's get some motherfucking heaven right now, dumbass. Right now.
This is exactly, you're talking my language.
I believe it. I'm so thrilled.
I taught my son early on because I was like, because I grew up, strict Catholic, I go, how do I not give him that same fear or belief system?
That's right.
So early on, I taught him that voice in his head that makes him feel bad, that makes him doubt, is called ego.
Yeah.
So he was able to separate it.
Did he? What age?
I started around age 5.
Right.
So now he's 17,
Wow.
and it is unfucking believable how he talks to me. He'll say, you know what? It's interesting that my ego is telling me that I should be really scared about tomorrow.
Wow.
And so then I go in deeper and I go, how often are you able to, put your ego to the side and sit in the space in between? Because that space in between from feeling and acting is everything, And he said, I visualize it. He's like, I can actually see ego on one side, and then it's me.
That's right.
And he becomes aware. When you become aware.
That's beautiful. 17. He's so ahead. Good for you. I just had a baby, so we're very interested in, like, how are we going to... Because one of the things is you have to be somebody before you can be nobody, right?
That's right.
So, like, building an ego, they say usually around the age 7 is when it's been developed, is when you have, and then there's the wound, and then we rebel.
Totally.
And all these things, and maybe even pose for Playboy. I don't know if that's your story, but, like, that's why I was like, that sounds right on track.
Right.
And for me, it was a divorce. Like, we need to be wounded. But this is, I forget who said it, but Richard Rohr quotes it all the time. He says, first comes the fall, then comes the recovery from the fall. Both are the grace of God. I know I'm using the God word.
It's okay.
But it's like the idea is these wounds and what I perceived as a failure from God, like I was paying him off like the mafia.
Right.
I was a good boy. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't swear. I certainly didn't. Well, I did look at pornography, but I felt really bad about it.
You were banking the good things you did.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was transactional. And so many of us do still have a fear-based transactional view of the divine, that we think deep down this, whatever this is, doesn't like us. And obviously the church, and not just the Catholic Church, but a lot of different churches, have identified that shame is a manipulatable thing.
Yeah.
And we all sort of feel it most notably in our bodies, and we lose the narrative. That's why the book is called Comedy, Sex, God, because sex and God were so intertwined for me, and coming to peace with that and loving yourself for who you are and for what you are is such an important step to getting to identify with your spirit.
100%. I can't wait to finish this book. I tell you. Comedy, Sex,
I'm
God.
touched you've read any of it. I mean, I've hosted shows and talk shows and stuff, and I understand if you haven't
I love books.
read a word.
I love them. Downey and I do this thing too because we're deep into this. All we do is watch Eckhart Tolle at night and
That's
read
it.
books.
I quote Eckhart in the book. He's incredible.
He is incredible, and we made voices for our ego to explain. Like he'll be like, my ego's saying she's being a meanie right now.
That's right.
And so we put these cartoon voices on to explain,
Because
hey, it's
that's
not
what they
me. My ego is
That's
saying
right.
this ridiculous. And you know what it does? It makes us laugh at
That's
how
right.
ridiculous
That's
our
why-
fear-based voices are.
That's why I think it's natural. Some people are like, why is a comedian writing a book about spirituality? I'm like, that's what it is. It's funny. Once you wake up to the joke that you believe you're your thoughts. So when your son is noticing like, oh, there's a voice in my head that's telling me to be nervous, the big question in the book is who's noticing that thought?
Correct.
You're not the cloud. The clouds are thoughts and feelings. You're the sky. And this is every tradition, all of them. It's trying to wake you up to the idea that what you are is pure awareness.
That's right.
And awareness can only recognize awareness. You're a piece of the divine.
That's right.
And coming home, this is my favorite parable that Jesus says. It's about the prodigal son. We all know that story. And the father says to the son who returned after his posing for Playboy time or whatever you want to say.
Right.
He went out and had his drinks and
Totally.
whatever it was. And the dad says to him, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. Right. That's the voice of God.
Yes.
Jesus is always telling these stories where you can't divide infinity. You can't divide infinity. I say in the book, there's nothing you can do to be closer to or further from the infinite love of God. There's only things you can do that increase or decrease your awareness of that love.
That's right.
So I'm talking about your experience of joy. I'm talking about it's like sin, right? Fuck that word. I hate that word. But it's just static on the radio.
That's it.
And you want to hear the song. Because it's where the juice and the sex and the life and the vitality and the color and the joy is. It's not to be a good boy and earn it.
That's so true.
And I resisted this. There was a chapter, I actually cut it from the book. I'll put it in my next one, where it was like, Jesus never said like your neighbor. He said love your neighbor, right? It doesn't mean like your neighbor. Richard Rohr taught me nowhere in the New Testament is the word nice. But we've turned it into the religion of nice people. There's tons of fucking people. I can't fucking stand them. The false them.
They're correct.
But I can recognize the part of them that is just the thing that's looking out their eyes.
Totally.
And the thing the bodyguard that they built around that, yeah, I've got a fucking problem with it.
Right.
I don't like the way you're talking to people. I don't like what you're doing, this, that, the other. But I don't have to be a phony and be like, but, Jesus said to love them.
Right.
I'm not loving that. I'm loving what's really them.
That's where
which is what's me.
interconnectedness. When
That's
you
right.
really connect to that concept, you have immediate empathy and compassion for people.
That's right. You don't have to fake it and be like, well, bless his heart. He's sure got a good vocabulary. Right. As Christians, we're always looking for like something that we could like about them.
Right.
And that's nice, I suppose, if you want to like look for, they got nice pants. I love them. Jesus told me to love them, and I love those green pants. That's bullshit. And this is one of the reasons I wrote the book was like spirituality we've lost it. It's become embarrassing to be spiritual. It like,
better not, because I talk about it every fucking day on the show. So hopefully I'm bringing.
And that's wonderful. And so we need more voices that are saying like, we've lost the narrative. It's slipped out of our fingers, and we've turned it into morality. We've turned it into phony holy, just being nice and sweet, which again, it's nice to be nice, but it's not the point. We're talking about an inner transformation. We're talking about a spaciousness in your consciousness that, motherfucker, I'm not talking about later. I'm talking about as you listen to this now.
Right.
Can you just create more space in yourself and let go of your thoughts and your false identity and the story of what you deserve and
your
who
story
disrespected
of
you
your
or what
past.
happened. Exactly. What happened to you. That is your ego. It's lying to you. It's going like, yeah, but you don't deserve the love of God. Remember that?
Right. Or your belief systems that you grew up with.
And the fear.
Yes.
I was unfortunately looking at my Twitter after I was on Good Morning America, and people are like, you don't realize you've sold your soul and you're going to hell and all these things. And I'm like, this is what religion has become. It's an ego game. It's a narcissistic ego game of going who's in and who's out. And guess what? It's always your group that's in. Isn't that funny how that works out? It was our group that's in and every other group is out. Dude, if you were born in India, you'd be a Hindu.
Right.
Do you understand?
Right.
That's step one.
Exactly.
Wake up. That's step one. And guess what? The Hindus aren't wrong, and the Muslims aren't wrong, and the atheists aren't wrong. You're just working with what you're working with,
right.
And it's about something far more personal. So really the book is about going from external religion, about membership, about worshiping signposts, fingers pointing at the moon. We're the right finger pointing at the moon, and all the other fingers are wrong. But fuck all that, and it's about inner spirituality, about inner transformation and actually feeling and experiencing a change. As I said, right now, as I'm talking to you, I feel lighter. When else?
You look lighter.
I feel lighter. Well, I'm also excited to actually talk about it. You know what it's like doing a morning show and you're like, I have 4 minutes and I just have to say one thing. Now I'm happy to talk to you.
You can actually have a fucking conversation.
Yes.
I want to ask you about like being triggered. What do you do then now? Let's say you don't have all your tool set, you're tired. And you get triggered. How do you recover, or what do you do to tell yourself to not be so pissed off at that tweet that came in?
Sure. Well, I think one of the keys is to have compassion for yourself, right? So it's one thing to identify that you're like, that's not who I really am. That doesn't mean that I don't get lost in it all the time. There's a story that I've been telling where you know how it's like when you write a book. They printed the galleys, and they printed the wrong draft of a galley is a pre-version of the book for the press to get, and they printed the wrong version, the wrong draft. And I had this like swell of like, I've been working on this book for 3 years, and the book reviewers are getting the wrong version.
I call that the murder death ball. But go ahead.
I got the murder death ball, like the spinning pinwheel in the Mac. That's just like something's wrong.
Yeah.
And something that I said, wrote about in the book was it's a very confusing thing to your ego, and it's a very good technique. And I don't mind ruining the whole book. I want to give this stuff away for free if you want the printed version. But this is one of the things.
I say tell people because then that makes them want to buy the book more.
Totally.
So go.
It's when I felt that dread and anger and like a little bit of disgust, just like rage. It was ugly. It's inside. I'm a very polite person, so I don't like let it out, but it's in there.
Right, of course. You're human.
What I talk about in the book is it's very helpful to whatever you're feeling. You say yes, thank you to it. So this is we don't need our mantras to be in Sanskrit, and we don't need them to be tied to any religion. The most helpful mantra for anybody is yes, thank you. When you're in traffic, you say, yes, thank you. This too. Richard Rohr says the first forgiveness of Christianity is to reality for being how it is.
Right.
It's you forgiving this
being a
conundrum
of what is.
that we're stuck in, the good, the bad, the ugly. So even the suffering, people love saying things happen for a reason, but we often mean that from the ego level. We're like, oh, I got hit by a car and I lost my job, but then I got that new job and I met Meredith. That's your story, and it's not what I'm talking about.
That's right.
Things are happening, and the reason is it's to help us let go.
Right.
So even the suffering of my wrong, by the way, they fixed the book.
Thank God.
HarperCollins, great publishers. Thank you.
Yeah, love them.
They really did.
Collins.
Not a single copy of that. Luke Dempsey, my editor, made sure it didn't go out. It was wonderful. But that suffering wasn't for Pete, the story of Pete. It was to help me go like, look at how fucking angry you are right now. Look at how, Mr. Spiritual.
Right?
You wrote your big fancy book about soul awareness, and you can't handle this, you fucking shit.
And becoming aware of it is the first
step. That's
step.
it. What we want to do is, most of us can have a bad thing happen and then later have hindsight and go that's okay. I don't even identify with that person anymore. It was just something that happened. I'm talking about trying in real time to go, I'm feeling this now, and I'm not going to say yes to it later. I'm going to say yes to it right now. Even if you don't mean it, you can feel this like, it really is like you're holding like a hot coal or something, and you're holding it tight, and you're letting it define you, and you go, I'm angry.
Yep.
I am angry. I am angry. That's what I am.
Right.
And then you go, that's not what I am. I'm the thing noticing the anger.
Correct.
And I'm the sky.
Your
and
awareness behind the anger.
That's right. And the big nasty rain cloud came in, and it's raining diarrhea. I'm still the sky.
That's right.
And I'm still looking at it. And fuck what you believe. I don't care if you believe in a soul or spirit or whatever. I'm telling you that this can give you peace, and it's a really, really fun path to go down for you. I'll never be able to judge, nor should I, where you are on the spiritual path. You can. So the book is filled with a lot of things that help me do that.
And remember, like, you wake up, the next person wakes up. It makes it easier for the next person to wake up.
That's right.
So this is an important book, I think, and it's very timely.
I think so. I think because of the internet and because of shows like this, look at what we're doing.
I know.
You haven't once gone like, I just want to take a break to talk to our sponsors, WKBBL. Like, there's no bullshit. Like, there's so much content. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing so much more consciousness expansion in all sorts of fields.
I think so too.
Podcasts, even our movies, like, we're craving a little bit more sustenance.
We are.
In everything.
100%.
You'll see it.
And again, being a role model for your kids. Live that way. Your kids will too. My son came home from school and he's like, some bully gave him the finger and called him a mean name, like retarded or something. Yeah. And he walked in the door and he goes, Billy had a really bad day today.
That's so good.
Isn't it? And I go,
I want to interview your son.
Happened?
His name is Billy.
My son's name's Evan. The bully's Billy.
Oh, I thought he was saying, because that would be cool too. Sometimes I go, my name is Pete. I go, Pete's having a real hard day today.
He doesn't talk about himself in third person.
That would be cool if he did.
It would have been cool.
But he was having empathy and compassion for the bully.
Yeah, he said, because I taught him along the way, and I didn't realize it until he came home and said it, but, pain is a projection. When people say something, they're usually, they could
hurt people. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
So when he walked in the door and said that, he's like, he must have had a really bad day. I go, how come? And he goes, because he was calling me names. So I just sent some love in my head and walked away. And I'm like,
that's fucking amazing.
Isn't it? I'm really proud of it.
Your son should write a book.
Someday he's going to write 8 about me because I wrote 11 about him.
Did you? You wrote 11 books?
Yeah.
Wow. Jenny McCarthy.
I needed the money, honey. Just kidding. I did love writing. Writing.
Good for you.
But I was also a single mom, so it did help. Pete Holmes, I could talk to you forever, but I have another guest coming in. Comedy, Sex, God. You guys pick up this book. I have a feeling you just sold about at least 10,000 right now.
I really hope so.
I hope so, too. This is an important book.
It matters to me. It feels a little sleazy to go out and, like, schlock it or whatever, but I'm like, this is my passion. I think that confuses people. I love doing comedy, but it's always to try and infuse some of this in there. And finally, with this book, I was like, okay, you're here. Can I please tell you what's most important to me?
Right. And awareness, here's awareness and speaks awareness. So those people are waking up. Those people can hear it.
That's right.
So they're going to get it.
And that's where peace and joy is. So I hope it gives people a little.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you, Jenny. I
Keep
really
it up.
appreciate it.
Keep it up. This book is great. Comedy, Sex, God, pick it up. Pete Holmes, please come back and let's talk more.
Anytime.
Awareness. We'll be right back, guys.
Jenny McCarthy Show. Oh!